What's up? How you doing? Good to see everybody. Analog Attack
Hi.
here. Hey, Dean, how you doing?
Hi.
So today's
Hi.
special guest all the way from New York, Mr. Dean Rispler. How you doing?
Hi. How you doing?
I'm
Thank
doing
you for
pretty
having
good.
me on.
Uh,
It's early for me. I'm just letting you know it's early for me.
it's
I,
late for
I
me.
shouldn't be allowed to operate heavy machinery right now. So,
Yeah, it's Friday night here, so yeah. So Dean, New York, punk and metal.
yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
pretty wide playing field we've got here.
It is. And as far as heavy metal goes,
Yeah.
it's not as extensive as the punk because
Agreed.
there is some great bands. Don't get me wrong. There's
Yeah.
some great bands, great stuff that came out here, but it's not as extensive as the punk rock.
Right.
And I think the reason for that most of the great metal came out of the suburbs because
Okay.
there's room to have a rehearsal space with a lot of amps
Right.
and big drum sets. In
Okay.
New York City, as we know, everything's so expensive in the city that you get crammed into small rooms, like the smallest rooms ever. And if you have your own rehearsal space, if you're lucky enough to have that, they're tiny, like they're so tiny. Um, so that led to a lot of smaller amps, smaller drum sets,
Okay.
and also punk rock was king in New York, and in the
Right.
70s and
Right. Yeah.
early 80s, and
Yeah.
whereas like heavy metal was more of a suburban and outer boroughs thing, and
Okay.
that's why all the best bands were from the outer boroughs.
Okay.
So like
Okay.
let me see if
What
I
you
can
got there?
find here.
Yeah.
I'll show you what I got here,
Cool.
what I pulled out.
All
So
right.
for example, like this is
Oh,
this record,
oh, okay.
right? Okay. Yeah, an amazing record, right? So
Yeah.
here's the story. Riot is like they were from Brooklyn and Long
Right.
Island. Like they were mixed. Like Mark Reale was a Brooklyn
Right.
guy. I think Guy Speranza, who sings on that record, that was his last record he sang
Yeah.
on. Possibly the most underrated metal
Oh,
vocalist. That record is the most underrated hard rock or heavy metal record ever released,
that
ever.
is what I was. That's what I was going to say. I pulled this out. This
Yeah.
is my favorite Riot record. I mean, all the first five or six are all great, right? But this is my
Yeah,
favorite.
I like everything up to and including the records with Rhett Forrester. I
Yeah.
like all those.
Yeah.
I haven't really delved into the like Thundersteel and stuff. I've heard some of
Mm,
that and it's cool, but it's nothing like the street metal that Riot did. And weirdly enough, when I was one of I was born in Brooklyn, but then I grew up in Long Island for most of my life out there, and then most of my
mm,
childhood and teenage years. And the house that we lived in, and it was in Old Bethpage, right in the middle of Long Island, and we sold it to a couple who came in, and I was 12 years old. I was starting to buy records at 12 years old, and a couple comes in to look at the house, who ended up buying the house and ended up being friends with me and my parents and stuff
uh,
for years after. And the wife comes downstairs and she sees I had a bunch of records. She goes, "You know Riot?" And I'm like, "How do you know Riot?" She goes, "I used to date Guy Speranza for years."
oh no.
Like, no way, dude, that's crazy. So I'm asking all these questions. I'm
Uh,
12 years old, so I was like
oh,
totally different mindset. But it was pretty mind blowing.
wow.
But that record, that's all outer boroughs,
Oh,
suburban guys too.
I
So,
love
but
I
that
love
record
that
is the
record
best.
so much. It's amazing. I think it's like a bit of a new wave of British heavy metal feel to that record, a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I think because that there was not much. I mean, there was a metal scene, of course, in New York, here, and in America, but I think their popularity came from going overseas. They
Right.
obviously were big in Japan, and
Well,
they were playing like stuff like the Reading Festival. So I
they
think I
they
think they were
played
big.
they played that first Monsters of Rock festival too with
Yes,
Rainbow and Judas Priest. They
yeah,
were on the bill for that
yeah,
too. Yeah.
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 So I love that record. Let me see what else I have here as far
Yeah.
as metal goes. Um, there's some records I didn't pull out because it was like, hold on a second, where is it? Sorry, I'm very disorganized here. Oh, here it is. Here.
All right.
Oh,
What you
sorry
got?
about that. Of course, this record was a huge influence on me.
Oh,
This record.
Dean, I can't believe this. Two in a row.
Yeah.
It's,
So there you go. So
uh,
so So this record was a huge influence on me. I also have the first single, the Ladies Boys singles. I
Right.
bought that in like 1980. I was 12 years old when I bought these records, you know. So so this, of course, growing up on Long Island, there was Twisted Sister along with Zebra,
Oh,
and along with the Good Rats, who I was a little I was too young for that, but now, I mean, I could wax poetic about the Good Rats now. I unfortunately was way too young to go see them back in the day, but man, those records are amazing. I don't know if you have that record, Tasty by Good
oh, I've
Rats. It's
never heard it.
amazing.
No.
It's not metal. It's not metal, but
Okay.
it's amazing rock and roll and just
Right.
really great songs and awesome stuff. But getting back to this, of course, as a kid, seeing Twisted Sister
Oh,
and what they look like,
yeah,
be
yeah.
like, oh shit, this is going to be fucking weird. This, you know,
Yeah.
I was already attracted to like that theatrical rock thing with Alice Cooper, and you know, I was already big into Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne. Not that Black Sabbath was theatrical, but Ozzy Osbourne was, you know, I was what 9 or 10 years old when
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz came out, and that was very theatrical. The cover and
Yeah.
the whole shtick with, you know, you hear these stories about Ozzy biting heads off bats and doing all. Then you hear all the bullshit stories that aren't true, but you know, with Alice Cooper as well too. So that was what attracted me to Twisted Sister, and then the songs happen to be amazing, and that's by far their best record.
Absolutely. Yeah. They kind of got their break in England because Lemmy really helped them out, right? In England, he really supported.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they were playing. I mean, did you see the documentary?
I did. It was long, but I did make it through the whole thing.
Yeah, that documentary is about as Long Island as things get. Almost all the if you notice, almost all the interviews are in cars. Everyone's in a car because everyone's driving somewhere and in traffic and in cars, and that's what Long Island's all. That's what New York's all about. If you have to go anywhere, it's just like, holy shit, dude! It takes longer to go places than to actually get stuff done.
I love that record's on Secret Records too, which is kind of the punk label, the Exploited, and we're on
Yes.
Secret Records.
Also, I think if I'm not sure, I think it's produced by Pete Way.
It is, yeah.
Yes, so Pete Way, R.I.P. Pete Way. So
yes, yeah.
So that's very cool. So, as far as straight up metal goes, I mean, for me personally, in New York, there wasn't much more that was that influential on me.
Okay.
There was bands. Of course, there's bands like Overkill and Anthrax. You know, Anthrax and Overkill. You know, that stuff's all great and stuff, but it wasn't that hugely influential on me.
Right.
I did see Anthrax and I did see Overkill and all those kind of bands. But then I kind of went into the punk world, and then of course crossover. So of course there's this record. This record is
classic,
hugely influential, right?
I saw the Cro-Mags with Overkill and Nuclear Assault in England in about 1986.
Oh, that must have been a blast.
It was a good show,
yeah. So that record, this Cro-Mags record, this, and of course the you know, of course everyone's gonna say, and I'm even gonna say it, like the demo's even better. I mean, the demo's just so urgent. I mean, this is an urgent record, but that demo is like it's like jumping off. You know, it's basically the sounds are just jumping at you. But that record's amazing. I mean, I know a lot of hardcore people will be like, oh, I you know, they'll pull, you know, like I love the first Agnostic Front record too, but that record's more influential to me,
right,
as far as a hardcore and crossover record.
Right.
The other record I can't find that I would definitely pull out right now is Crumbsucker's Life of Dreams.
Oh,
which is, you probably have there, right?
Oh, I had it ready, but
okay.
Yeah.
I have it somewhere in here, somewhere there, but I can't find it. I don't know why, but I have to go through everything. But I definitely have an original copy of that. This is one of my favorite records.
Yeah.
And that band,
when that came out, that was a real, like, wow. That was like, damn.
Yeah. That record is amazing, and I saw them live a bunch.
Oh wow!
I even saw Chuck's heavy metal band after that, Heavy Rain.
Because the second album was, I like the second record, but it was a bit different, right?
It was definitely different. Definitely different.
Yeah.
But that first record's amazing. And then recently I met Dave, the original singer before Chris Notaro, and super cool. And Dave actually gave me we were talking. I was at his house doing this. It was a long story, but we were doing this video thing, and I was like, oh yeah, I really wanted to buy that FOAD compilation.
Right.
And he's like, oh, he just goes in the back room. He has like 10 copies. He gives me like a copy. It's great.
Cool.
So I have that. I have the double record with all the original stuff on there.
Man.
That's cool. But that Life of Dreams record was amazing, and they were amazing live. Like one of the two best hardcore bands, in my opinion, live in New York were both Long Island bands, and it was Crumbsuckers and Ludachrist.
Oh, Ludachrist. Yeah.
Ludachrist was amazing live. They were hilarious, amazing musicians, and they really went out of their way to piss people off in a really funny way. Because, you know, like the whole place is full, you know, there's tons of skinheads and stuff, and these guys come out half long hairs, and they come out and they open up with like Spirit of Radio by Rush.
What?
And everyone's really confused. It was great. It was really cool.
Wow. Yeah, it's like, as an Englishman, kind of New York hardcore scene was kind of quite intriguing, you know. It was kind of watching it from afar, like, you know, all the different kinds of bands and the kind of straight edge bands, and then like the ABC, No Rio kind of bands, and
yeah. Well,
yeah.
I mean, things, I think in the later 80s, things started getting really separated a lot, you know, and there was and then, you know, I remember starting to go to shows in like 80, 85, 86, you know, and like at first it was really fun, and then I mean, it was always fun, but then the hardcore scene got really separated. First it got separated from like hardcore, it got separated so far that it went from like, okay, it's not even punk anymore. It's just hardcore and skinheads.
Right.
It's just either skinheads or just like regular people, regular looking people, and there was really no punks anymore. Like punks would get beat up, and then there was no crossover stuff, and all the punks ended up going to like ABC No Rio, and the skinhead kids, and all the skinhead stuff got really big, you know, like bands like Madball, Cro-Mags and stuff like that. Yeah, like that band. I saw that band. I saw those guys at ABC No Rio.
This is one of my
and
favorites.
That was awesome. I saw those guys with Sam Black Church.
Okay.
Remember that band?
Yeah. That's an interesting.
Yeah, from Boston.
Yeah.
They were great. Born Against was great. They were a great band.
This is one of my favorites from that kind of ABC No Rio. It's a great record. Amazing. Yeah, and then
I also like all the crusty stuff that was going on too. You know, like
like Nausea and
who were the other bands who were good at the time? There was
Rorschach.
My friend Rorschach. I saw a bunch, and they were amazing.
Wow.
I got to see Rorschach with Asuk, and I saw Rorschach a couple times. They were great. I'm old friends with Charles Rorschach and Keith Huckins. Those guys are really cool guys.
So that whole scene is like, was it totally separate from kind of Agnostic Front and all that kind of? It was pretty much separate.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What's that?
So that kind of ABC No Rio scene was totally separate from kind of Agnostic Front and all those kind of bands too.
Well, they kind of separated. It's weird because, you know, Roger from Agnostic Front, he was married to Amy from Nausea. Is that her name, Amy? I don't remember anybody's name. Yeah. So there was that crossover there, but as far as like the fans go, like the ABC No Rio crowd kind of separated themselves from what was like regular CBGB's hard. I mean, it was definitely crossover, but like if you went to CB's matinee in the late 80s and through the 90s, it was all fucking violent skinhead insanity, right? It was like totally insanity, and you know, if you look at who was playing in the mid to late 80s, you would have Sunday matinees that were like the Dickies played, or you know, bands like punk rock bands that were great, and then that just changed. It was like after that, in the late 80s, it was not punk anymore. Like even bands that were hardcore that looked punk kind of got like, you know, like I remember going to see Pagan Babies from Philadelphia with Raw Deal before Raw Deal became Killing Time, and they were great, but like the crowd was like totally dead because they looked kind of
Right.
punk rock, and they were actually really great musicians, and
Right.
were playing more punk than like less breakdown hardcore kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's why I kind of was coupling this with the Born Against as kind of a contrast. Like,
Yes, yeah, yeah. Jorge is an old friend of mine, and I
yeah,
knew Saab. You know, I used to play in Murphy's Law.
yeah, yeah.
I used to play in the Crown of Thorns, so we used to play with those guys
This
all
is
the time.
heavy. I mean, I'm not really a huge fan of this kind of style, but this record is. I really like this
Yeah,
record.
no, they did that stuff really well.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
definitely did that stuff really well. Like,
yeah. Fantastic.
I wouldn't. It's not a record I'd pull out to listen to,
All
but
right.
it's like, but they definitely, when you hear it, it's like, oh, they do this stuff really well.
Yeah,
That's it.
amazing.
I thought amongst that stuff, I thought the Crown of Thorns record,
Right.
the LP was great. The Mentally
Wow.
Vexed. I thought that was a really interesting hardcore record that was done in that style, but different, because Mike DeJean is a monster guitar player. He's like one of the best guitar players who doesn't play solos. It's amazing. There's no guitar solos. There's no guitar solos, and he's still one of my favorite guitar players.
Chronothorns,
Wow.
LP.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. I'll check it out. Dean, I want to ask you, I had to show this record because I've loved this band
Yes.
since I was a
Well,
kid.
that's I like that record, but one of my favorite records from them is Battle Hymns.
That's cool. I love all the first like 5 or 6, but I think this one is maybe
Yeah.
my favorite. But yeah,
I hate to ask you. You got to talk. I can't hear you at all.
Really?
You got. Yeah, barely at all. Sorry.
All right. Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah. I mean, I've been ridiculed my whole life for being a big Man of War fan, but I think they're
Yeah.
amazing. So I wanted to ask you if you
But-
had some Ross the Boss stories or.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this is one of my favorite records.
Oh.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right. So this record, though I got where is it? Where is the record? Can't find anything anymore. This is I got this. This is the first one I got. The
Okay.
first album.
Right.
Is that the first album?
Yeah.
So I bought this record. I must have been like 14 or 15 years old. I was at a record convention. I used to go to record conventions to buy records a lot. So I bought that record because I was with some friends who were older, much older, who were like punk rock guys and really cool guys who turned me on to a lot of cool shit. But I got into the Dictators because when I was 12, I bought Battle Hymns by Manowar. And then I bought Hail to England like a year later. And then I was buying, fanzines and metal magazines and stuff, and like World Metal Report and Kerrang and all this cool stuff. And I'd read these interviews with Manowar, and it would be like, oh, Ross the Boss, formerly of Dictators, of proto-punk, New York proto-punk. So I was like, oh, I got to hear that stuff. I never heard that stuff. So when I saw this record, I think it still has the price tag on it. I got it for $2. So I was like, oh, I got to get that record. And then I of course, I fell in love with that record, and then bought the other ones. And Blood Brothers is my favorite. I think.
Mine too. Yeah.
That's amazing. So I bought that record, and then for years I became friends with Ross because I started playing in a band called the Voluptuous Horror of Karen Black.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And the drummer was J.P. Patterson, and J.P. Patterson was in Dictators for many. He was the longest running Dictator drummer, and he was also in Manitoba's Wild Kingdom, whose cassette I had the cassette. A friend of mine was an intern at MCA and brought home all these cassettes and all these promos. So I had that on cassette. He brought home like Alice in Chains was a new band at the time, and Spread Eagle and bands like that. And so I had that record, and then I got to play with JP, and then because of playing with JP, I ended up eventually playing in what was called at the time, we did a couple of shows as the Handsome Dick Manitoba Band.
Okay.
Which was another time when Manitoba and Andy weren't talking to each other, which is now I think permanent, but at the time it was on and off. and Continental, the club Continental, which is a pretty well-known club in New York, was closing, and we were asked. Manitoba was asked if the Dictators could play, but Manitoba was like, well, I want to play. Andy doesn't want to do it, so fuck him. We're going to do it. And we did it as a four-piece, which I was on bass and Ross the Boss on guitar and JP on drums and Manitoba on vocals. So we did that, and then that kind of prompted the reunion of the original Dictators.
Okay.
Not the original, but the classic lineup of Dictators, because CBGB's a few months later was closing, and Andy said, we got to get the band back together to do this. So they started playing again. But I remained friends with Ross, and of course I've been friends with JP since I'm 21 years old.
Wow.
And so eventually when everything fell apart again for Dictators, we started playing as Dictators we got Daniel Ray on guitar.
Right. So
then there was two guitars. So we started doing that. And now that's been over almost 5 years now that imploded. And now, I'm still really close with JP and Ross. And Ross is doing it's. And Andy, you probably deny it, but it was my idea. But Andy and Ross are now doing the original Dictators. They're recording right now and doing the original Dictators lineup pre-Manitoba.
Right.
So it's Andy on vocals, Scott, top 10 on guitar, original rhythm guitar player, Ross on lead guitar, and they have Albert Bouchard from Blue Oyster Cult on drums. Yeah, so that's awesome because Blue Oyster Cult's like my favorite band, one of my favorite bands ever. So
they're a New York band too, right?
Yes. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I forgot to pull out some of their records. But if I did pull out their records, I would have pulled out Secret Treaties, which is to me one of the greatest records I ever recorded. Yeah. But so Ross right now. That was my idea because Andy didn't want to do the Dictators anymore. Andy didn't want to do Dictators when we were doing it, but he's like, I don't want to be in an oldies band, blah, 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 blah. And, it's a much longer and convoluted story than that. But after all this happened and the whole band imploded, it was kind of my idea. I said to Ross, you guys, if you guys want to continue doing this, the only way you continue doing this is the only way Andy's going to continue doing this is out of spite, not out of love. Because that's not part of Andy's makeup. It's out of spite. So if he could, out of spite to Manitoba, continue doing the Dictators without Manitoba, if you put that in his head, he'll do it. And of course it happens.
Dean,
so that's what's happening right now.
Dean, what happened to Manitoba's bar? That's closed down though, right? Closed down?
Oh, it's such a long, convoluted story.
Really?
But
okay.
Yeah, I could get into it. Bottom line is, I'm the only one who still speaks to Manitoba. Like I love the guy, but he's to say he's difficult, he'd even say he's a difficult person. He knows that, but I love the guy, but he's an extremely difficult person, and he had a huge falling out with Little Steven. He worked for Little Steven because he was a DJ on Little Steven's radio station. They had a huge falling out. I'm not going to get into that. It's so crazy. But they had a huge falling out, and because they had the huge falling out, Little Steven was an investor in the bar. Okay. So he pulled out, and then his partner pulled out, and then there was no money. Oh. So that was the end of that. Yeah, a
couple of my good friends from New Zealand lived in New York, and they lived almost above Manitoba, so they used to go there all the time, and they loved it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I used to go there a lot, and it was and for the up until they closed, it was one of like 3 cool rock and roll bars left in the East Village or in just New York in general. There's nothing left. Especially now, wait till after, see what happens after this COVIDian times. It's just gonna be dead. It's scary.
Right. Dean, do we have any more records to talk about?
Well, I mean, as far as records that, I mean, that were influential to me,
Yeah.
I mean, they're all, I mean, it's all pretty standard. I mean, like this record to me is, I mean, like,
Yeah.
not only is it a great record, but Robert Quine, the guitar player, Robert Quine, this dude over here,
Right.
He's like one of my favorite guitar players ever, and I got to meet him when he used, before he died. He used to hang out a lot at Mojo Guitars, which was on St. Mark's Place. My friend Chris Cush owns that place, so I used to hang out there a lot. And I met Robert Quine there. And Robert Quine was notoriously a curmudgeon. Like, he really didn't like to talk to people, and he was like really not very nice at times. But when I walked in, I knew it was him. And Chris Cush was like, "Hey, Dean, did you ever meet Robert Quine?" And the first thing I said to him was like, "You were one of my favorite guitar players in the world, blah, blah." And he was like so taken aback by what I was saying, which was totally true. And that he was so cool. And we talked, and every time we saw each other, he was so cool. And then unfortunately, like within a year, within the year that I'd met him, his wife died, and that took a huge toll on him, and he kind of slowly killed himself. So it sucked. So there's a guy who it's so funny. He was a guy who was involved with all these people who were all heroin addicts and wasn't a heroin addict. And then later in life decided to kill himself with heroin because that was probably the easiest way to go. So it kind of sucks. Kind of sucks. So, I mean, I have, the normal stuff here that everyone grew up on. I mean, this record, I mean, you know what they say about this record. It's like they only sold, at the time, 3,000 copies or something worldwide after 10 years, but all 3,000 people who bought that record started a band.
Right. Dean, what do you think of this record? You a fan of this record?
Oh, that's a great record. I have that record.
But 1970, heavy for 1970.
Yeah, I have that record.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I love that record, and that's what's that song? All Pumped Up. It's great.
Yeah,
it's great.
Heartache is another good one.
Yeah, that record's killer. I love that record. That record, along with this one too. I don't have the originals because I was too dumb to not buy them as a kid, but I have this one. Like, this is the Two Dust record.
Yeah,
this is both records on one. Like a double record. So that along with the Sir Lord Baltimore, and also the first the Climbing by Mountain, which I didn't pull out. So that's a New York record.
Right. Yeah.
Because those guys were based out of the same place as the Ramones in Forest Hills.
Wow. Yeah.
So though some of them lived in Long Island, but that record, that Mountain Climbing record, that is amazing stuff.
Amazing.
But that Sir Lord Baltimore record's crazy. Like, the vocals are just insane.
Yeah, it's not heavy in a Black Sabbath way. It's kind of more like rock and roll punk kind of. Crazy.
And I know there's some sort of connection. I think the engineer or the producer of that record, I'm forgetting who the name is, but it ended up working with Devo or something.
Wow. And also, I think
so.
And then there was a guy called Mike Appel who wrote a lot of the songs.
Mike Appel, I met Mike before. I didn't know he was involved at Sir Lord Baltimore, but I know Mike Appel. He was the manager and producer for Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, that's why I was like, wow, this guy, he co-wrote a lot of the songs apparently on that Sir Lord Baltimore.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't read the liner notes on that one, but I know I met Mike Appel before. He was, I don't know if he's still alive, but he was really funny dude. I know that it's so funny. I know that Bruce Springsteen hates him, like he's been in like some sort of lawsuit with him forever. But every time, it's so funny. Every time Bruce Springsteen's asked about Mike Appel and recording, he always lights up because Mike did crazy stuff, like made him like. Wow. I learned a lot as a producer from Mike Appel because he used to do, like, I used to take ideas from him, like triple tracking acoustic guitars, and then doubling them with a 12-string acoustic guitar. I love that sound. So that's cool.
I was going to ask you a little bit about that, Dean, because like Bad Wizard,
Yeah.
I love that band, and I just noticed that you like produced a couple of their records, right?
Yeah, I produced the first 3
Wow,
records.
they're man, what an amazing band! Yeah,
Yeah,
are they?
they were that was fun. The first record, when I went into work with them at the same time when I was in a band called the Brought Low that were on
Yeah,
TP Records at the
yeah,
same time. So we went in at basically the same month. We went in to record
right.
those records. So I went in with the Brought Low, was recording. The second we were done, Bad Wizard came in, and we started working, and that was a lot of fun. It was and then, but that band was a real mess. I mean,
Okay,
the first album they were very prepared.
right.
After that, there was absolutely zero preparation
Oh yeah.
for any of the records.
Oh,
Like the second record was a total mess because they half the band left, so they had all these new members. They didn't even know the songs, and then Curtis, the singer's like, "We're ready. We're gonna come in and do a recording." I'm like, "I haven't even done pre-production. You want to start recording next week?" And so I went in to do some pre-production. They had none of the songs are done. Like
oh, wow.
I'm like finishing songs for them, and it's like everything's a real mess. But we got that record done, and but that record, that second record, Sophisticated Mouth, that's you could tell it's like sort of a weird Rush job. There's a couple of great songs on there, but you could tell it's like a lot of
Right.
fudging stuff. Third record was a little more prepared, though still very unprepared for my tastes, and to the point where we didn't even have enough songs to make a full-length record. It wasn't even 28 minutes what they had. So I asked him what's the name of the record, and he goes, "It's called Number One Tonight." And he goes, oh, I said, "Okay." It was the end of the night. I said, "Everyone go home except for Scott, the drummer. So I have a song for you." So Scott and I finished the song that I wrote on the spot. And then I had Eddie come in and do a guitar solo. And then we did the vocals later. And so I wrote the title track to Number One Tonight to finish the record.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is the end of the record, there's an instrumental that was supposed to have vocals, but Curtis could never come up with vocals. So I just did my best Brian Eno imitation and did tons of looping synthesizers, and I did all like looping Ebo guitar stuff like Robert Fripp. so that record came out pretty cool. I thought that came out really cool.
Yeah.
And then they went on tour, and they did one more record with Jennifer Herrera from Royal Trucks.
Okay. Wow.
And that record is that's also, you could tell there was no songs written. It's just like stuff looped over and over again, and like it doesn't make any sense, but it's kind of cool in a way. But it's but then that was the end of that. That band ended, and Tina, the guitar player, she's in an all-female blues band now.
Okay.
Called Jane Lee Hooker.
Oh, okay.
And so she's doing that, and Curtis doesn't do a band anymore. Curtis is just he's a chef and restaurateur guy, so
Okay.
he's doing that. And Eddie lives out in Long Island. I don't know what he's doing. I speak to him once in a while, but he's not really playing with anybody. So I don't know.
Good band.
Yeah, they were fun.
Death metal, New York.
Well, Immolation's the best. Immolation's the best death metal band.
Immolation.
Yeah, they're the best. They're the best death metal band in New York.
Right.
As far as others go, I mean, there's a lot of good ones now. But I mean, as far as classic death metal in New York, there wasn't too much going on.
Right.
I mean, there was some. I mean, I wouldn't even know. I mean, who else was there?
Suffocation, maybe? Suffocation?
What's that?
Suffocation?
Oh, Suffocation's great. Suffocation's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, Suffocation's amazing.
Yeah.
They're that's that's Long Island, Long Island stuff. Like again, most of the metal was coming out of outer boroughs.
Right.
Immolation from Yonkers, which is not even a borough. It's out of New York City.
Okay.
But though right above it,
Right.
and Suffocation was from all the way out in Long Island. They were all the way out near Stony Brook and Setauket or wherever they were from, all the way out. My cousins grew up out there. They went to high school with the Suffocation guys.
Wow. Incantation.
I like Suffocation a lot.
Yeah, good, great band.
Yeah. And there was some good Jersey. There was some great Jersey death metal. There was who's from New Jersey? There was all that in the '90s. There was all that crazy grindcore stuff like Discordance Axis.
Okay.
Ripping Corpse.
Right.
That stuff's really good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good Jersey stuff that's really good. Like Dave Whitty, I'm friends with Dave Whitty. Dave Whitty was in Black Army Jacket.
Right.
I produced one of the Black Army Jacket records. So Dave Whitty plays with Municipal Waste.
Okay. No, really.
And he plays with who else does Dave play with? He played in a million, but he was in Discordance Axis. He was in Black Army Jacket. He was in Burnt by the Sun. He was in a ton of bands. He relocated to Richmond, Virginia, but he was a Jersey kid growing up. He was friends with Dim Mak and Ripping Corpse and all those bands, and that's who that was a whole scene in Jersey that I kind of missed out on, because in the '90s I was on tour a lot.
Right.
Starting 1992, that's when my real professional, quote unquote professional career started. So I missed out on a lot of local stuff because I was always on tour. And to my defense, other than death metal and hip hop in the '90s, everything else sucked.
Okay. Fair comment.
Yeah, because I really, when it comes to the '90s, I really hate it.
Tough decade.
I really wasted a lot of money on a lot of shitty records in the
Tough
90s.
decade for sure. I got one more record I wanted to show you, ask you about.
Oh, Demolition Hammer. That's a good band.
Yeah.
Really good band.
Very violent.
I was working with this band. I used to work with this band from New York called Stanley.
Okay.
They only have one record out. We did 2 records, but the second record never came out. The bass player, they were from Westchester, where Demolition Hammer was from. So the bass player, Dave, he was like one of their roadies for Demolition Hammer.
Oh.
He told me a great story on one of those records. Awesome story. The drummer for one of those records was a Brazilian guy. I forget his name. Amazing drummer. I forget his name. I'm really bad with names now, but he was an amazing drummer, like absolutely fantastic death metal drummer, like extraordinaire.
Right.
And they were going in to record a record, and he got there early, set up his whole drum set, got all his sounds, and the band was caught in crazy New York traffic somehow, or was late, or something was going on, and they just weren't there. And he was all set up, had all the sounds, and he just told the engineer, he said, "Oh, let the tapes run." And he did the whole record by himself.
Wow.
Like that's how prepared he was. He did the whole record by himself on drums before the band even came in. So when the band came in, the drums were done. I don't know if it was that record.
That's a picture of the band.
Yeah, I don't know those guys personally, so I don't know. I don't know, but it was some Brazilian guy who was in the band for a short time.
Wow.
So that's pretty crazy.
Wow.
I never saw Demolition Hammer.
Wow.
I never got to see them, but they're a great band.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
That's up there with kind of Slayer, Raining Blood for really like kind of violent thrash metal. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I like that stuff.
Yeah.
I definitely like. I don't know if I have any. I don't think I have any of their records. Definitely didn't pull them out.
They're kind of hard to find now, I think.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I think they got reissued though. I think someone reissued Relapse or someone like that. I think they signed. I think they did their reissues with somebody recently.
Oh, okay, cool.
I don't know. Cool. Everything's getting reissued now.
Yeah.
Find everything.
Yeah.
But
so Dean.
But I mean,
Mm.
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you what else. What
Well,
else
I
can we
think I
talk
have
about?
like just a couple more. They're pretty standard. Prong.
See, I hate that record.
Oh yeah.
I
You
hate.
like the
Yeah, I hate that record. I bought that record and Primitive Origins when they came out,
right? You like
and I
Primitive
can't
Origins,
stand
right?
it.
You like
What's
Primitive
that?
Origins. You like the one
I
before,
can't hear you.
right? You like? Do you like
No, I
Primitive
don't.
Origins?
I have both those records. I have Primitive Origins, and I have Force Fed, and I think they're unlistenable. I think they're complete. I think they're completely I think they're completely forgettable and completely unlistenable.
Cool. So let's move on
Yeah.
to I don't know.
I I love the first record,
Okay.
Strap It On,
Yeah.
and that's it. That's it. After that, I like the song, the hit from that record. Not. I like
Unsung.
In the Meantime.
In the
I like
meantime,
the
yeah.
song In the Meantime, and I like that other song. What was the
Uh,
hit from that record?
unsung.
Unsung. Yeah, I like
Unsung.
that
Yeah.
song.
Yeah. Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I continued buying their records. I
Right.
bought Betty. I bought that record. I
Yeah.
bought Betty, and I bought the record after it. I have the Betty 10-inch, but I don't remember anything from it. But one of the best shows I ever saw in the top 10 would be Melvin's Helmet
Oh.
in 1991 at
Hmm.
CBGB's. That was amazing. That was fucking amazing. Amazing. Like, so loud and so heavy. It was so great. So great. It was really amazing.
That's all I've got, Dean. I don't know if you have anything else you want to
Well,
talk
the only other stuff I have here is real standard stuff. I mean, the only thing, let me see what I got here that's cool. I pulled this out because I think this mix is better than the original.
Oh, yeah, I have that one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think this mix is better.
Yeah.
But this record's incredible. Like
Oh,
the songs are just awesome. You know, like great songs. And I mean, and the funny thing is that they weren't a New York band. They were from Youngstown, Ohio, just relocated to New York.
Right.
So they're lumped in with that.
Yeah.
Same thing with these guys. With these, you know, like, I mean, would the Cramps be considered a New York band because they kind of got their start in New York, but they weren't from New York.
Okay.
I mean, they were from Ohio as well.
Right.
But these records are amazing.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Hugely influential on me, and I took this out. It's a real standard record. But this record, this record's influential on me, not only from them as a band, but what these guys, the kind of stuff they were doing, and what David Byrne would talk about, got me into a lot of dance stuff and weirdo stuff. Right. Because of David Byrne, I got into Brian Eno and Roxy Music. Went back in time. And Robert Fripp, of course. I was always a big King Crimson fan, so that all kind of pulled it all together. Yeah. And on top of that, David Byrne, through interviews and what they were doing, got me really into like the African pop stuff, like King Sunny Ade and Fela Kuti. And
I love that guy, King Sunny Ade. Yeah. I have about 10 of his records. I love fantastic.
Amazing. That Juju music, Juju music record is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But also got me into Fela Kuti, and also it opened up my ears to a lot of the New York dance stuff that was happening concurrently with punk, like the no wave stuff. Okay. But then there was bands like ESG and Dinosaur, not Dinosaur Jr., not that kind of band. But there was another band called Dinosaur, and there was what was the other band? DNA, and there was all this weird. That also got me searching into stuff like the Contortions and James White and the Blacks and that kind of stuff. So I got really into that stuff, and there was a whole other dance scene on top of that. There was a that also introduced, because of getting into that kind of stuff, got me into all the On You Sound stuff, and like Gary Clall and Tackhead and then there was it got me into a lot of other weirdo stuff that was going around, and that also that was also going concurrently with the beginnings of hip hop. So
Right.
in New York, it was all mixed up. You have these dance bands like Liquid, and they were getting sampled and exploited for a less than better term by Grandmaster Flash and
Right.
all this kind of stuff. Well, it's all good. I mean, I love that stuff. So that got me into because of David Byrne and Talking Heads got me into a lot of
Fantastic
non-rock stuff that was concurrently going on. So that was a big deal for me. And I don't know what else I got here. I mean, everything else is real standard. Like I bought this as a little kid. I must have been 12 when I bought this record, 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And that totally changed my life. And it's funny because I bought, you look at these two record covers. They're one's metal and one's just more glam. It's the same band.
Yeah.
But this isn't a great record. This record, it's not really that great.
Okay.
But this is the first one I bought. So Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers, a huge influence on me, and then this record, of course, is
fantastic.
Television's Marquee Moon.
Yeah.
That record's a huge influence on me, and I also ended up. Me and JP played in Richard Lloyd's band for a while, so we did that for a couple of years, or I was in it for like a year and a half. But that record's usually influential on me as far as guitar playing and songwriting and just that New York sound. And I didn't pull out any Blue Oyster Cult records, but that's my Blue Oyster Cult is my favorite New York band ever. So besides this, of course, I mean, I pulled these records out. I mean, this just should be in everyone's. He should be in everyone's collection, as like these records.
Yeah.
That was the first Ramones record I bought, was Rocket to Russia, and then of course the first record. But all of their records to me, every Ramones record up to and including Too Tough to Die are all great.
I love Too Tough. That was my first Ramones record, Too Tough to Die.
Yeah. That's a great record.
Great. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Great.
Fantastic.
I saw them the earliest I saw them, I think it was '86. I saw them on the Animal Boy tour.
Okay. That's a good record.
What's that?
That's a pretty good record.
Well, there's some good songs on there. Yeah, there's some good songs on there. I saw them on that tour. It was a free show. When you ever see those pictures of in Queens of the big globe, where the World's Fair was?
Yeah, where the Beastie Boys took the.
Yeah. So in 1986, there was a free show. It was Meatloaf and the Ramones. So we went to see the Ramones. So that's pretty awesome.
Wow,
that was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah,
Dean, I think we're gonna run out of time, my friend. Zoom is gonna shut us down.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's been a lot of fun. We could talk for hours, I guess.
Yes, and think about it. We were just talking about New York.
Right.
We were just talking about New York. I mean, we could go on and.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm sorry I'm somewhat unpresentable. This is too. I mean, it's 11:30 here now, but I woke up way too early this morning.
No, it's after midnight here, so yeah. Okay, thanks, Dean.
Thank you, Mike. I'll speak to you soon. All right.
Okay. Until next time.
Take care.
Stay healthy.
Take care.
And stay clean.
Bye.
See you, Dean. Bye bye.
See ya.
See ya.
Take care.
Bye bye.